what's good, you guys? Rasati out here in Singapore, and man, I have had some amazing conversations lately, and I'm always so grateful. I'm grateful when people actually reach out to me and ask me how I'm doing. It's like nothing I actually really expect, but it's really, really great, and it's a nice surprise, and it really does lift my heart whenever that happens. So I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for checking in on me during this quarantine period. But in the meantime, I want to talk about the fact that you know what? Life is kind of unpredictable. And at the moment, there is so much information out there on how you can help yourself, but none of it is tailor made for you. Most of it is generalized, or it's based on the other person's life experience. You have so many people who have written books on how they've survived this and how they've survived that, and I get it, but the reason I became a coach is because I wanted someone to be able to hold my hand through some things, or at least someone that I can, soundboard off of, so I don't always feel like I'm completely alone. So I don't always feel like, oh my gosh, I read this book by Tony Robbins and he did this and that worked for him, but I tried it, or I don't like this aspect of this process and I want to skip it, but what if I don't get the same results? Then what do I do? It's not a one size fits all kind of life. You got to work it out. You got to figure out what works for you. And then you got to tweak, right? You got to make it better. If something works, you don't want to change it. If one part of that something is something you really, really hate, you're going to have to change it. You're going to have to do something. You're going to have to adjust. So in those situations, it's really helpful to have someone you trust, someone in your corner that can say, all right, we'll try it. Or notice when something works and something doesn't. Sometimes when you're in the process itself, you don't see it working the way you want to. You have this expectation of the results, right? The ROI, what does it look like? Did I get this many followers in a day because of all this engagement or not? Those are the things we're looking for. But honestly speaking, a lot of times the things that are working, we don't notice. I don't notice sometimes the fact that having 700 some episodes on a podcast has helped anyone. Why? Because I really don't look at the stats and I don't get that many comments, and there's so many platforms that it's on, but I know the few people that do listen, like the 3 people that I know of that do listen, they feel pretty good about it and they look forward to new episodes. So I have nothing to complain about, but I know that if I had a coach that was specializing in podcasts, they would tell me all the other things that I should be paying attention to, I should be grateful or excited about. Like, how many people can say that they actually created consistently enough to be able to say that they have 700 some episodes? I mean, we all know Gary Vee has, right? But how many other people? How many everyday people? Brandon Bouchard probably has, but I mean, who else? Really, right? And it's not like major content. It's not like life-shattering stuff. I'm documenting. I'm happy to document. Why? Because I really feel good about the product. I really feel good about what it is that I'm putting out there. I believe in what I'm saying. Why? Because it's my opinion, obviously. But the point being that there is no one size fits all. I've had so many people come to me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I want I want a coach. I want to get through this situation." But you're really sweet and you're like my big sister, and I don't feel like, I think we should just talk like friends. And that hurts my feelings. But you know what? I'm not a one size fits all kind of coach. I'm not for everybody. It means I'm going to hold this mirror up to your face and you're going to have to look at some pretty hard truths. You're going to have to accept some things. You're going to have to admit it to yourself because I can see it, they can see it, you just don't see it. And that's part of the reason of having somebody who's been there in your shoes before, to be able to point out the things that you do have. Point out the tools that you do have at your disposal, that you don't need to make excuses for not moving to the next level, that you don't have to be afraid of some of the things that you're afraid of, because I've been through those things and I'm telling you, they're not as big a deal as you think they would be. Yes, I'm talking a lot of vagueness today. Let me see if I can give you an example. I had someone come to me and they were like, you know what? I don't get many people that can actually hold space for me because I've been through some crazy stuff, and sexual assault, it's been really hard. It's only been a year since it happened, and it pervades my thoughts, and it's changed the way I live, and it's kind of influenced every decision I make going forward. Even though I'm no longer in that situation, even though I fought hard and I stood up when I needed to stand up, I still feel like I'm going through it, and I need to reminisce some of these things because I need to understand why I did what I did, because looking back, it doesn't make sense. But honestly speaking, you need somebody who's been there. And maybe not the same situation, because let's be truthful here. I can't say that I've actually been in your shoes, being in the exact same circumstance, but I felt that feeling that you're feeling before. And I walked through it. I was able to come through it, no problem. So when we sat down and we talked, she was like, wow, you know what, you really get me. And you gave me some, other things to consider. And I've never had that. And I'm in therapy and I'm doing, trainings and healings and all these things. And you get me. And I appreciate that. Cool. I'm okay with that. I was able to give her other things to focus on. I could tell by the words she used to describe what she was feeling that this is what she needed next. It's an intuitive thing. And intuition doesn't come from just listening to your gut when it rumbles. Intuition comes from you've been in this place before, you know what's going to happen next, you can predict it. So this is what you're going to do instead. This is where you're going to focus instead, because focusing on the fear, yeah, it's going to stall you. It's going to freeze you in your tracks. You're going to be a deer caught in the headlights. Let's focus on this instead. Because where the danger is not imminent, the fear of it still is. And I need you to focus. So that intuition helped her. But push come to shove, she didn't want the prices that went with real help to heal. She wanted it for free. And that's okay. That's fine. But I also know that what you would be paying for is my blood, sweat, and tears. What you would be asking for help with is something that I actually lived through, a nightmare that I turned into a dream afterwards. That I was able to flip the switch in the middle of the situation itself, in the middle of the nightmare itself, and find a way out. It's almost like if you've seen the Divergent series, right? And the young lady, her name escapes me right now, and I hate that. The young lady has to go through a test where she's actually in a dream situation facing all of her fears. And she has to figure out how to get through one fear into the next fear and out of that one too. I've made that a habit in my life. Crazy ass situations, life or death experiences, and I found a way out every time. I survived and then I thrived. And I know how to do that. So when you ask me what my prices are, what it looks like to work with me, they're not exorbitant, but they're not cheap either. Why? Because I know I've helped so many hundreds of people across the world. And I know it's working. I know it's helpful. So there is no one size fits all. It's why I continually research and look through and learn new methods and follow new people and interact with as many people as possible, because the problems I went through when I was growing up are not the problems you're going through now, because the technology is different. The culture is different. The language is different. LGBTQIA+, and I'm sure there are a couple other letters I'm missing. Non-binary, what does that mean? We didn't even think about that stuff when we were growing up. But now you offend people without even knowing. So for me, I don't cookie cutter anything for you. When you come work with me, I am tailor making something specifically for you. Now you can buy the journals, those are generic. You can buy, the courses, those are generic, but those are level 1. The real work is when you work hand in hand with me. And I say hand in hand, side by side. I'm working with it with you. I'm working through it with you. Which means it's going to be a lot more conversations. You're not ready to talk to me? Cool. Buy the course. Buy the PDF. Do some of the work on your own. But if you really want some answers that are specific to your situation, let's talk. It's not always easy to own up and say, you know what? Okay, I'm ready for the work. And the work does not mean I do the work for you. No. This is not homework. Circa when you were in primary school, where your mom sat next to you and basically fed you the answers, told you where to look. This is adulting homework. This is like a thesis. You gotta do some research. You're gonna grow a little through this process. No, not a little, a lot. You're gonna realize some things that have been staring you in the face forever that you've been turning a blind eye to, and you're gonna finally look at those things and analyze them and dig through them and wear them if you have to, so you can remember what it felt like, so that you can no longer feel that again. You don't have to feel the fear that comes with those feelings again. You no longer panic. You know what to do. Because the goal is for you to never need me or anyone like me again. That's the goal. I'm not saying I'm going to fix you, but I'm going to teach you so much about yourself that you know what to do instinctively for you when the situation happens. And if it's a new situation, something you've never been through before, I'm going to teach you where to pay attention so that you can figure out what to do in those situations too. That is the point. I don't want you to need me or anyone like me ever again because you trust you. You know you. And that's all that matters. So if you're ready, come holler at your girl. You know where I am. You got more questions? Drop them in the comments below. But until the next time, you guys, know I love you and I care. You don't have to do this alone. I got you. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.